Hey folks, Eddie G, DM Fumble, back with another video, sooner rather than later, like I promised last time. Today I want to do a bit of a thought piece on something that happened at a recent game where I was actually a player instead of being the DM. As I mentioned before, I always recommend that you get a chance to step out from behind the screen, get a view from the game from a different perspective, and hopefully pick up a thing or two that you can bring back to when you go back to being a DM. Let me run through the scenario and what I didn't really like after reflecting on it after the fact, and what I might have tweaked a little bit to make it a little bit more player friendly. So for this session, we were in the boss fight. And it was the typical stop the emergence of some great evil type scenario. The special requirement for this particular fight, in addition to stopping the boss itself, was for one PC to each round spend their action doing something that was affecting the environment, quelling the emerging effect of this creature. If I was designing this scenario, I would have totally designed it the exact same way. I didn't see anything wrong with it as we were playing it and going through it, but it was only later on when I was thinking about it that I was like, oh, there's a couple of things I don't like and I think could have been done just a little bit more player friendly. Not necessarily better, but just enhance how all the players at the table had a chance to play the game. My issues were that the one player, and this was a player who had the religion skill, which is why they got locked into stopping this emerging evil force. They had to spend their action every round. The second negative concern I have with it was that we didn't notice a noticeable effect of that player's action. So they're spending their action doing X, and we're not seeing benefit Y every round as we're going through this. Lastly, I would say that there was the fact that it was just one boss. So it just became a dog pile. Everybody's, firing everything into this one creature. So how might I have done this a little bit differently? I think they did a great job. The DM did a great job running the scenario, and I had a lot of fun playing it. I didn't see any problems with it at the time. It was only on reflection that I thought we could maybe do things a little bit differently. First is start with the negative terrain effect. So when we come into the final chamber, add something like difficult terrain, obscured areas, so we can't get a clear view of it. We've got ranged combat has a problem trying to lock in and hit this creature. Difficult terrain affects our movement. There could have been other gaps and fissures, collapsing parts of the area that could have made it more difficult as we were, traversing the space from the doorway to where the creature's at. That would have certainly made combat a bit more unpredictable as we're, going forward. Secondly, maybe do something to change that one player is locked into spending their action every round. Maybe it's something where every player goes in a circle. Every player has to contribute something, in subsequent rounds. So one round I spend my action doing something. The next round somebody else does it. Next round somebody else does it. Just in random, as long as we all do one turn. So, after 7 rounds, 6 or 7, after several rounds, 5 or 6, we were probably close to being done with the combat in a typical scenario. Even boss fights don't last that much longer. Also, the action should have a noticeable effect every round that we're spending it. Maybe we're seeing the terrain becoming more stable, or the obscuring fog is dissipating. Something that makes it a little bit more of less of a hindrance is one way to go. Or maybe there's some kind of positive ritual that we're doing to counteract it, and we're now getting a positive boon out of it. Maybe a bonus to attack or saving throw, like a typical bless spell, or some other little minor effect that we might have, boost to armor class, something like that. Also, that one player spending their action, again, I suggested the idea of maybe having it rotate around the different players. Maybe we do something where the player spends a bonus action or a reaction, thereby still saving their action for them to do something, so they can still feel like they're contributing with what their player has buffed out and equipped themselves with, so that they're still taking the actions that the player would like their character to do, in addition to helping to, affect the terrain and quell these effects going on. And then lastly, I think, adding some minions to the effect. They could be minions that are harassing the players. They could be affecting the terrain. They could be springing traps. They could be even from a distance shooting the ranged if we're doing something where we're not using obscuring fog. Or maybe they can see through the fog just as a natural ability. Something that throws a little bit more variety in there. Now we have to decide, okay, do we want to take out these little minions who are haranguing us for, a little bit of damage every round, or do we really want to concentrate on the boss? Maybe we'd spend a moment to just waste a big quick area of effect and blow out the minions real quickly and then go after the boss, whoever it might be. That gives us a little variety as opposed to, we're all here, we're all going to spend every action, everything we've got, we're going to unload on the big guy. So those are just a couple of ideas about how I might have wanted to tweak this final boss scenario to make it a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more user-friendly, a little more variety that we can add. As I mentioned from the beginning, stepping out from behind the screen is something I always recommend. Get a chance to see the game from the player's perspective, and hopefully you guys will come up with some ideas, maybe ones I haven't even suggested, that you think could help tweak this particular scenario if you run something similar. To make it more fun, more dynamic for your players so they don't feel like they're locked into until we've defeated the creature. All right, that's just my thoughts. Again, let me know what you think in the comments below. Until next time, see you soon.